Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first postseason episode of the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender, and our guest today is Dan Fitzgerald, a Minnesota native and former Marquette men's basketball standout. Recently, Pete Mohan and I chatted with Dan about being the general manager for the Golden Eagles alumni squad that hopes to play in the basketball tournament this summer. Not sure what that means? Well, that's why we've got this pod for you. Basically, if you want to see your favorite Marquette basketball players, folks like Darius Johnson-Odom, Jarrell McNeil, Devontae Gardner, Trent Lockett, Lawrence Blackledge, and Dwight Bikes, all those guys in the same jersey, on the same floor, on ESPN, with a shot to win $2 million, well, you've got to vote for them. The tournament starts later this summer, but they need your vote now in order to get into the tournament. So you can go to thetournament.com, or on Twitter, you can go to @GoldenEaglesTBT for the link in the profile. It's a great interview. Hope you enjoy it. Without further delay, here we go. Pete Mohan and I chatting with Dan Fitzgerald. Pete, how you doing? How you enjoying the off season so far?
Good. I'm just, relaxing down here in Florida. I'm on vacation, just like the rest of the team, so I'm feeling good.
We've got a special topic to talk about, and we've got a special guest returning to the pod for a second time. Joining us to talk about the basketball tournament is general manager and former MU standout Dan Fitzgerald. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Good to be back on.
It's good to have you back on. And for those that don't know, Dan, last year you were the general manager for the Golden Eagles alumni team in the basketball tournament. Now, if you've been living under a rock and somehow missed all this great stuff that's been going on with the basketball tournament with the Golden Eagles alumni team, Dan, what do the people need to know about the Marquette team playing in this tournament? What's this tournament all about?
It's pretty awesome, and if anyone else hadn't heard about it before, neither did I until they came to me with asking if I wanted to start a team. It's basically a NCAA road to the Final Four type single elimination tournament, 64 teams. We fielded a team last year, not really knowing what to expect, and it was a ton of fun. So now we're back at it.
Back at it for another round. You mentioned all the specifics of the tournament. It's a single elimination. You can enter any sort of team, but it's kind of been dominated by a lot of these teams that are alumni teams. There's already registered this year. There's a Vanderbilt alumni team, VCU, Marquette alumni. You told us before we started recording there's a UWM alumni team, so that's going to be fun. I want to know specifically for the Marquette team, there's always that moment when it just becomes something you joke about and is funny to talk about, and then there's the moment when it hits reality. And last year was the first year you put together this team. What was that moment last year when you realized, oh, wow, there's a lot of interest from these former Marquette guys like DJO, Dwight Bikes, Wesley Matthews, who was coaching, yourself. What was that moment?
I guess it was, I spoke to Travis first. He had, when I was telling him about it, he had all the same questions I had, like, what's the buy-in? How much is it to play? And,
right.
Mm-hmm. $2 million, there's got to be a catch. And I said, no. I'm pretty sure there's no catch. And I had to double check a bunch of times. But, we were both kind of like, well, why hasn't anyone thought of this before? So it was a cool idea. But then in the summertime, it's just jam-packed, especially for guys who play overseas. They get home some of them only get home for about 2 months. We made it work with most of them, and it worked out great. So now that we've seen it and we went there, we kind of winged it as far as planning. We did have a mini camp maybe a few weeks before the first round last year, which was a lot of fun. We got all the guys back on campus, had a dinner, and Joe was very helpful with everything. He welcomed everyone back. So that was a ton of fun just to get everybody back in the same gym. this next year, we're probably going to want to plan it a little better where we have a mini camp right before the first round so we can kind of take it a little more seriously as far as game planning and strategy. And I think we put in like two offensive plays at the hotel last year. So I think we might do a little more planning this year because it was a lot of fun. I mean, we won some games and we made it to the Elite Eight, and we lost a game I think we all think we should have won. So we definitely have a shot at winning it all, I think. And just besides winning, it was just a ton of fun for me to have guys I played with. Travis and Wes Matthews were the two coaches, so I had just a blast strategizing and coaching with them.
So Dan, as the GM, you get all the heat for making the roster decisions and stuff like that. So tell me what it was like assembling the roster last year. Was it you had a bunch of guys that were trying to get on the team and you had to turn guys away, or was it tough to get a full squad to be on there at all times? And how do you see that changing going into this next season?
I have newfound respect for general managers now. You have a lot on your plate as far as the team, but scheduling and all that kind of stuff, man, it's a headache. It's a good thing that I'm paying myself handsomely for it. So
there you go.
The first year, I was worried. I wanted to make sure we had enough guys that would show up. I don't know if you spent a lot of time around a lot of athletes, but we're not really planners. We have 1 year deals, and people pick us up and take us to practice, and then we say, where are we going to eat? Someone, feeds us. We're not really good at planning. So it was a lot of babysitting at first, just making sure guys would get there. We had a couple missed flights and, texting frantically, where are you?
You care to share who those people were?
Yeah, so we had 11, I think we had 11 total, which was awesome. That was the max last year. 11 guys last year, but this year will be even more difficult because there are definitely more than the allotted spots that guys want to play. So we might have to make some decisions on who makes the roster. There's a couple other things. Last year it was 11 spots. This year it's only 9 free spots on the roster. And then every player you want to add after that, you can add up to 15 total, but every player you add costs $1,000.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna be the Grim Reaper in there, sitting in your office, calling guys in and saying, life ain't fair, buddy. I tell you.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough because most of these guys, they're all great guys, and I've gotten to know most of them pretty well, and everyone wants to play now, which is cool. So we're gonna have to figure things out. Perhaps we can fundraise some money so everyone can join, but until I see how many players fully commit by registering, by sending me their videos, their 10-second video you need to register, then we'll kind of decide what we have to do. But now we have, first year I was worried we'd have enough players. Now this year we have plenty of players to choose from.
That's a great problem to have. And before we get any further, I want to mention that one of the things that Dan and the rest of the guys need to get into this tournament is they need votes. And it's in the early going right now. Voting is open until June 1st, and they're doing well, but they need more votes. So you can vote in 2 different places. You can go to thetournament.com and find the Marquette team and do a quick vote for them, or you can go on Twitter and go to @GoldenEaglesTBT, and there's a link in the profile. So go vote now.
And Mike, you didn't even mention the best part of it, is that if you're one of these team boosters who's collecting votes and stuff like this, if you come out, on top or higher up in how many votes you generate, you can win a portion of the overall grand prize, if I'm not mistaken.
Up to $20,000, I think.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a really cool deal. It's a great way to get fans invested in this thing, which I think is pretty cool. So you basically get a point for your vote, and I believe you can vote up to 4 teams, I believe.
Yeah.
And I believe if you can figure it out, it's not that difficult. It's forwarding emails to people, and I know that some people don't like that, but if you can figure it out, you've got a great shot. The winner I heard last year, it didn't even matter which team won the championship game because she had the top votes for both teams. So she was going to win no matter what. So I think
Wow.
our top vote getter right now has like 30 votes already. So
Yeah.
it's a cool way to get fans invested in it, and you can follow your teams. And of course, we need them to get in. But there's some added, plenty of added incentive. $20,000, $200,000 up grabs for fans.
I mean, it's proof that being a fan actually can pay off. So
Exactly.
So one of the things you mentioned, Dan, was last year you drew up a couple plays, and this year you're gonna have it be a bit more structured and maybe a few more plays. And for fans that haven't seen it yet, what is the style of play? Is it more a pickup style play, or are you guys really going to try to get it to a little more set plays? And I know we had Wesley Matthews out there drawing up plays on the clipboard last year, and some other guys. Are you leaning towards that side because the competition is such that you want to win and you want to get that money?
Yeah, I mean, I left most of the coaching to Travis and Wes. They were They do that all the time, so they were really good at strategizing and doing things on the fly too. But I mean, we didn't do a ton of plays. We had some basic sets that guys can run, to get a ball screen and where to catch it to get their shots and have options. So we got guys that play really high level overseas, some ex-NBA guys. So the game is pretty fast paced usually. Sometimes it can get to be like a pickup game in a good way, that there's just a lot of buckets. There's not a lot of defense, so it's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But then, we are playing for $2 million, so guys take it really seriously. Mm-hmm. There are a ton of close games, and it's really pretty high quality players. There's, like I said, there's a lot of former college stars that play overseas, high level Europe, and a lot of ex-NBA guys. But it's a ton of fun. There are a couple rules change differences. It's basically a hybrid of college, EuroLeague, and NBA.
Mm-hmm.
There's 6 fouls. There's 24-second shot clock. European goaltending rules where if it's bouncing on the rim, you can knock it off.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the one big change, they haven't confirmed that it will be for the actual tournament, but they are testing it in the Jamboree. It is this alternate ending. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but basically there's 4 minutes left in the game. They turn the clock off, and then whoever's winning, so if it's 90 to 95, they add 7 points to the top score, so 95 plus 7, and then the winner is whoever gets to 102. So what they're doing is trying to eliminate a bunch of fouling and slowing the game down at the end of the game. They want every game to end on a bucket, basically like a buzzer beater, but there's no clock. So
that's crazy.
It sounds a little complicated, but at the end of the day, it's basically 4-minute mark. They turn off the clock and they add 7 to the high score, and whoever gets there first wins.
So if it's 91 to 90 at the 4-minute mark, they would add 7 to 91, right?
The game's to 98. Yep, whoever gets to 98 first wins.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So they're trying to eliminate. We're down 10, so we're going to foul to stop the clock to get more time. You can just keep scoring and getting stops, and you'll win the game, whether you're ahead or behind.
That's pretty genius. I mean, it kind of turns it into like, a street game where you're just playing to 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people say, some people will say, well, it gets rid of the buzzer beater, the time. And, basketball's a timed game, and the buzzer beater is so awesome. Well, even so, every game that ends on a bucket is really exciting.
And it has the added value, like especially if it's a closer game, but even if it's like a 8-point game, I mean, that makes you value each possession just that much more with the, to the extent which you might not at, the 3:40 mark in a game or something like that. But if you're down by 8, you got to go.
If you're at the game, well, whether you're watching or at the game, it'll be interesting to see how they show what's happening on the scoreboard, or how you really explain to people, because it sounds complicated, but at the core, it's you add 7 to the high score, and whoever gets their win. So it eliminates teams, stop playing and changing their strategy and just trying not to lose and wait out the clock, which isn't too exciting.
Right.
It only gets exciting where there's a major comeback, which percentage-wise doesn't happen too often. Mm-hmm. So this way, both teams are in it till the end, and you get on fire, and it's over. So.
Yeah.
Since you will possibly have more people than you can fit onto the roster, is there going to be a sort of positional makeup that you're gunning for, like, you know, a couple guys who are centers and forwards and point guards and stuff, whereas maybe last year it was just maybe getting a bunch of guys together. And at least for a big guy, how does that strategy, you know, these rule changes like the Euro rebounding rule play into maybe what big guys you would pick? Because it seemed like a long athletic center type who can just pluck the ball off the rim would be advantageous to have on the team.
Yeah, certainly. In games like these where you it's a little more similar to a pickup game, you need a couple things. Good guards that can score, and then you need a couple bigs.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, you don't even need bigs that can score 20 points. It's really for defensive purposes, in my opinion, that you just don't want guys. If you need guards that can score, that's what the other team will have, and you just don't want to give them easy layups. You want to have a rim protector,
clog up the lane.
Of course, a rebounder, and of course you want them to be skilled too. But so Marquette, you know, historically we got a ton of scoring guards. We don't have a ton of big guys. I don't want to name drop too much because I really have no idea who's officially going to commit. So I'll try to stay away from that too much. But my one guy who I know unfortunately won't be on the team is Ousmane Barrow, my old roommate. Mm-hmm. I was really hoping he would join. He'd be a perfect guy for this. He's still balling over in Europe. But he would have been great. So you need a couple bigs. Gardner expressed interest, so I hope he fully commits. He was there last year. He was great in one of those games.
Yep. Well, he's a good clutch free throw shooter too. If you need someone at the line.
Well, Chris O'Toole would be a big one. If we can get him to commit, he's still playing right now. That's the thing. Most of the guys are still in their seasons right now. So,
Any Joe Fultz or Trent Blackledge potential sightings?
Trent Blackledge I spoke to. He's still playing in Japan.
Nice.
Maybe the third thing you do need are a couple role player guys that do a little of everything, and he kind of fits that mold. With guards that dominate the ball a lot, you need some guys that can play without the ball, and he's certainly one of those. He's actually had an amazing career in Japan for the last I think 8 years.
Huh.
He does a little of everything. I think he probably averages 15, 5, and 5 kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd love to see Trent out there. That'd be cool.
We're going to have plenty of guys. It's just a matter of who fully commits and their schedule can permit, and we'll kind of see what happens. But I would imagine the roster would be very similar to last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned this before we started recording, and I remember this from seeing it on TV last year and on Facebook Live, I think it was, that there was a pretty strong Marquette presence at a lot of these games, right? Some of them were in Chicago. I think you guys were in Chicago for most of the time, right? But a lot of Marquette fans showed up, and hopefully there'll be another opportunity for that this year since you're again should be in the Midwest bracket.
The management of the tournament loved our fan base. Certainly in Chicago, the gym was packed. We did play a Chicago team. The fans were just going nuts. So that was a lot of fun. Even for me, I wasn't playing and I was getting psyched when, they were chanting "We Are Marquette" and it was just rocking in there. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, I think they had the clap going too, right?
Well, we were down by like 15 or 16 at one point. They were trying to get us going, and it certainly worked. So that was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, the first round is not in Chicago this year. It is in Peoria, Illinois, at Bradley University, the team that beat us in the regional final. So it's going to be a little farther of a drive for Marquette fans, but I'm really hoping we still get a good turnout.
And it's in Peoria because that's the team that won? Because Peoria is not necessarily a media center as one would think of it, right?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would agree. But I think just Bradley University, who obviously fielded a great team, I think they just made a bid to host it. Gotcha. At the university, I think.
Yeah, hey, this is Peoria's Super Bowl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, they played well, and we underestimated them, and they won. So they were doing things right. But just to let everyone know, the first and second rounds, so we would play 2 games. The Midwest region is in Peoria at Bradley University on July 15th and 16th. I believe that's a Saturday and Sunday. And then if we win those, we play in the Sweet 16 in New York, I believe, and that's the following weekend. And then the semi and final, basically the Final Four, will be in Baltimore. Yeah, Carmelo Anthony has partnered with the tournament, and him being from Baltimore, I think he's the one that brought it there. So those are the locations, and the first round starts July 15th and 16th.
So one last question from me, and Pete, maybe you got another one, but in the GM role, in addition to all the other things you're kind of talking about, what are you actually doing during the game? You're sitting on the bench, but what's that look like?
Nothing, man. I just sit there and look at sports. I don't do anything.
So you're a fan. That sounds great.
Yeah. So for the Sweet 16, when we were in Philly, we had, the 2 games. So I believe the first game, Travis couldn't make it. So it was just Wes and I. So I tried to fill in as, the second coach. And then the next game, Wes couldn't make it. So it was Travis and I. So I tried to just fill in where I could. I basically act as the logistical babysitter. I try to make sure everyone gets to the gym. And then once everyone's there and everyone didn't forget their shoes and all that stuff, I feel like my job's pretty much done. It's a ton of fun. I kind of just make sure everyone's where they need to be. And once the game starts, I leave most of the strategizing to Travis and Wes. But I do a little of it just for fun. And like I said, it's a bunch of my old buddies. So it's certainly not work. It's a ton of fun for us. So we're really looking forward to it.
Well, clearly you're a pretty big deal. If I'm not mistaken, I saw you rubbing elbows with President Lovell at the women's championship, Big East championship game.
Front row, baby.
Yeah, are you angling for a faculty role there? Or?
Man, full disclosure, I was with Steve Novak, so I think he's got more of a hookup than I do, but I'll ride his coattails to the front row at any point. That was an awesome game. I know Carolyn Keeger's from Minnesota. We used to carpool together when she was playing at Marquette.
Oh, no kidding.
So it's pretty cool to see her take the program where she's taken it. Awesome for them.
That was a great game.
Yeah, they had a fantastic year, and it was great.
One more question for you, Dan. I don't want to get too personal here, but, I wore the number 5, in high school when I played football, and you yourself were a number 5. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I've always thought that 5 doesn't get enough, good props across, college or pros. I don't know how you feel, or if you were a 5, all through your career, or if that was just at Marquette. But do you rep the number 5 pretty strong and, try to, hype it up for people? Because I don't think it gets enough hype out there. I'm just saying.
I do. I've had it since high school. I'm not really sure why. I believe there was a conversation with my dad where he told me, in high school I was 6'8", maybe 175 pounds. I was as skinny as they come. And I believe there was a conversation with my dad, and he's saying, you know what, you should take a single digit, because those double digits, they just make you look even skinnier. You'll look really buff. You'll look really buff with a single digit, and I ran with it. So I don't know if it's true, but I kept it going all the way through, even to overseas. I didn't get it every year because you never know what's available.
Sure.
But I try to go with the single digits for us slim guys. Mm-hmm. That's all I can tell you. I don't know. Yeah.
Did you ever have a favorite number 5 in the pros or any sport? Any 5s you admire?
Oh, a favorite number 5. That's a good. I don't think there aren't a lot of them. I think you're right. Can you think of any? I can't right now.
Well, I remember Donovan McNabb wore 5.
That's a good one.
He was a pretty good one. I don't know.
Yeah, even in the NBA, I'm trying to think. I can't even name one number 5.
Fun fact here for every listener out there: I'm actually on the Marquette wiki for player numbers. There's only been 2 players each to wear 6, 7, and 9, and no one has worn 6 since 1946, and no one's worn 7 since 1948. So I don't know if those numbers are haunted at Marquette or what's going on. That's really strange.
It is. I want to say that the reason is that I think it's because there were numbers that were off limits.
Oh, for officiating purposes.
I think for officiating purposes. Like,
that's true.
I'm pretty sure I wanted 7 at one point, maybe, but refs don't like to show 7 because it looks like 25, something like that. So
nailed it.
I remember.
Now I sound like an idiot.
Well, I remember overseas they didn't really care what number you picked. It was usually, most teams had numbers like 1 through 15, and that was it. And you just picked one of those.
And then you got Jay Crowder wearing 99.
Yeah, actually, that's happening more overseas too now. Where it started. I've seen a couple of 88s and 99s in Europe as well.
Well, you guys are in pretty good company with the 5s. I've got Joe DiMaggio, Mohan Nicholas Lidstrom
of course.
The Detroit Red Wings, Albert Pujols, Kevin Garnett, and
KG,
Jason Kidd. So
can't believe I couldn't think of KG.
I could.
Well, he wasn't. No, he was 5 in Boston. He wasn't 5 in Minnesota. Number 5s for all legends.
Oh, well, I cannot believe after hearing Pete Mohan talk about 5 for 15 years and how great it was that we finally had this conversation in public. So glad we finally got it out there. But folks, to remind you one more time, the Marquette Golden Eagles alumni team needs your votes to get into the basketball tournament. You can vote online at thetournament.com, or you can go to @GoldenEaglesTBT on Twitter and follow the link through the profile to vote there. Dan, any parting words here before we sign off?
It ends June 1st, the voting period, and periodically we, as players register, we will announce, usually one by one every so often, new players that will officially join the roster. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for joining the show.
Anytime.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us here at the Real Chili Podcast. Thanks again to Dan Fitzgerald for joining the show. Be sure to get out there and vote for the Marquette alumni team in the TBT tournament. We've all seen the consequences of not getting out there and voting. Plus, the team needs your help to get a shot at $2 million. Signing off for Pete Mohan, I'm Mike Lavender. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time here on the Real Chili Podcast.